So we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our information session here, all about Fielding's APA-accredited PhD in Clinical Psychology program. Before we do get started, I have just a few quick announcements to help with the flow of the presentation today. We'll cover a lot of information during the presentation, and I will be sending out the slides from the PowerPoint as a follow-up email, so don't worry about writing everything down. Today's presentation will be just under an hour, and we'll pause for questions as we go through the material. We'll also have time for Q&A after the presentation itself. Now, when we pause for questions, we ask that you either post your questions into the chat or use the raise hand function on Zoom so that we can call on you to unmute. We are recording today's presentation, so we do ask you to keep your microphones turned off as we're going through the slides themselves. We also ask that you try to stick to questions related to what we've already presented on when we pause for questions, since we'll likely cover other topics further on in the presentation as well. Now, as I mentioned, I will be sending out the follow-up email with the slides from today's presentation, and we will also be applying an application fee waiver to the accounts of today's attendees. But we do take attendance by the names displayed on Zoom. So if everyone could just double check your displayed Zoom name for accuracy, it will really help us out. If your name isn't accurate, you can rename yourself by clicking on the participants list, then hovering your mouse over your name, click the More option, and then Rename. Now, if you're joining us to watch the recording here, we also do award the application fee waiver for those who watch the recorded information session. And to coordinate that, after watching the recording, you can go ahead and just send us an email to admissions@fielding.edu, and we'll get you an application fee waiver added to your account that way. All right, with those formalities out of the way, we can go ahead and get started. Again, welcome everyone. I'm very glad that we are sharing this space together today to talk more about Fielding's APA-accredited PhD in Clinical Psychology program. My name is Brian Wallen, Senior Admissions Advisor for this program, so I am here to help with questions as you go through the program and the application process, and just as you're exploring Fielding Graduate University. Also with us today is my colleague in the Office of Admissions, Trevor Copeland, who is another great resource for you as you're exploring the program. Trevor will be marking attendance and supporting in the background of the session today. Thank you for being here, Trevor. And finally, I am very pleased to introduce our program director and professor, Dr. Connie Vize. Dr. Vize will take us through some program information before handing things back over to me to cover application and tuition information before we open up for Q&A after the presentation itself. Dr. Vize, thank you so much for hosting the session today. From here, I will hand things over to you.
Okay, sounds great. Well, good early afternoon, everybody. I'm trying to get the slideshow going. That's not like, there we go. Um, it's taking its time. Okay, as Brian mentioned, I'm the program director for the clinical PhD program. And today we're going to cover a little bit about the field of clinical psychology in general and different degrees you can get in that field. We are going to talk a whole lot about the program, and then Brian's going to talk about admissions and registration information. So, PhD versus a PsyD. The PhD is the original Doctor of Philosophy degree. It focuses on the scientific study of psychology with an emphasis on the theory, scholarship, and research. And there's different types of PhD degrees you can get in psychology, developmental, social, are some examples, but clinical is one type of PhD degree in academic psychology. The PsyD degree came about around the late 60s, early 70s. There was a group of psychologists who got together and decided that the PhD did not have enough emphasis on actual clinical work in the field. And so this degree was envisioned to be focused more strongly on applied clinical work in clinical settings. Kind of fast forward to today, historically, these two degrees did look different like that, but today, both PhD and PsyDs are accredited by the American Psychological Association, and some of the programs look very similar, although you will still see some PsyD programs with a very strong emphasis on practice versus research. Fielding only offers the PhD in clinical psychology. So that's the degree that's offered. So you will get a strong focus on academics, clinical theory, and research. So we focus on all those areas in clinical psychology. Fielding has a scholar practitioner model, which means we expect that you will understand the scholarly literature, which is the basis of academic psychology, and you will be able to apply that knowledge to your work and practice. A PhD is a great degree to have because it does prepare you for a variety of careers in the field of clinical psychology. You, of course, will be eligible for licensure and can practice. However, you will be trained and know how to conduct research. You can teach at the college and university level, and you also can engage in consultation. Our program is very similar to all APA accredited programs, and the components of our program, we like to talk to them around the academic, clinical, and research components of the program to make sure you understand those components. So the academic component, these are your basic domains in psychology. You will have courses in all of these areas. These are core knowledge areas. The idea is that you will be able to take the core knowledge you learn in these areas of psychology and apply it to your research and practice. So take, for example, developmental basis of behavior and psychopathology. We can take the case of depression. How you diagnose and treat depression with a child may be different than how you diagnose and treat depression with an older adolescent versus an adult versus an older adult. So understanding the developmental basis of behavior and psychopathology would be important to your work with people with depression, depending on their developmental level. And that's just one example. All of these areas of psychology will contribute to your work in the field. Okay, and then we also have the clinical component of training, and in the clinical component, we have courses and applied experiences. You will have classes in psychotherapy. You will have classes in assessment. We have a strong assessment focus at Fielding. And you will also have these practicum case seminars where you're in class with your fellow students who are in practicum, and you're learning how to apply theory to your practicum cases. Our program offers training in psychodynamic, cognitive behavioral, and humanistic existential theories. So when you enter into clinical training, you will choose one of those three theoretical areas to focus on while developing your practice. In addition to these courses and training, you have applied experiences, and there's two types of applied experiences in the clinical component. One is practicum and one is internship. So practicum you complete in years 2, 3, and possibly 4 of the program. You will go into the community and obtain a practicum where you'll be supervised by a doctoral level licensed psychologist. These can happen in clinics, private practices, hospitals, etc. You have to complete 1,520 hours of practicum during years 2 to 4. Um, you must be supervised by doctoral level licensed psychologist, and it is unlikely that you will be able to complete a practicum where you work. So if you have a job in a clinical setting, it's not likely that you can do your practicum there as well. It results in you doing about 1,500 to 20 hours a week of practicum, again through years 2, 3, and 4 to obtain those 1,520 hours. Your last applied experience is internship. So we are preparing you to be a good internship applicant. People from APA accredited programs need to obtain and attend an APA or CPA, Canadian Psychological Association, accredited internship. Your internship is completed in year 5 or 6. You have to apply to internships in year 4. And then you interview and you get selected to go to an internship. Internships are 1 year, they're full time. You're typically an employee of the internship, and so you're not allowed to have outside employment while you're doing internship. Uh, the the site listed apic.org has a listing of all accredited internships. So I encourage you to take a look and see what internships may be in your area. So more than likely you're going to have to travel or move to attend an accredited internship. So you need to take a look at that. Okay, that's the clinical component. The research component, there's also courses and applied experiences. We have standard coursework in statistics, quantitative methods, psychometrics, and multivariate statistics. Fielding also offers research methods and qualitative. So you can choose to do a qualitative dissertation, but it involves you taking qualitative research methods courses. Per APA accreditation, you have to take statistics, psychometrics, and multivariate, but your research methods, you can choose to focus on qualitative or quantitative. And we have faculty and faculty research specialists who specialize in both of these areas. For research, you also have to do a practicum. So that's 200 hours of direct work with a fielding faculty where you're in their research lab or course and you're working with other doctoral students to develop research proposals that hopefully result in a poster or a article submission for you. Finally, you will develop and complete a dissertation. That's like your capstone research experience. Okay, so I'm going to finish this slide and then I'll stop and take questions. So this is a 5-year program. It's important to note that you cannot complete this program in less than 5 years. Our average time to completion is a little over 6 years, and the majority of students take 6 years. We are seeing more and more students each year complete the program in 5 years. So we are seeing a nice increase in the percentage of students who complete the program in 5 years. Year 1 and 2 are very heavy coursework. Year 2, you're getting into your clinical practicum. Years 3 and 4, you're wrapping up all these requirements. Hopefully, in year 3, you complete your dissertation proposal and you actually complete your dissertation in year 4. In year 4, you'd apply to internship. And then on year 5, you go to your internship to which you've been accepted, and that's the final component of the program. A lot of students finish their dissertation into year 5, and like I said, many students take about 6 years to complete the program. But I'm going to stop right there and take questions. Do we have any in the chat? Do people want to raise their hand?
Our first question here in the chat, can the practicum experience be paid? It's a three-part question. Let's start with that one.
Yes, it can be paid. You cannot, and you can't go to a practicum where they pay you per client, but you can have a salary or a stipend for your practicum. Those are not the norm. More than likely, your practicum won't be paid, but it is possible. We do have some students who have paid practicums.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Vize. And the second one is an APA accredited internship required?
Yes, absolutely. You have to apply to APA accredited internships.
Perfect. Thank you. And if an incoming student already has numerous posters and publications, can research practicum be waived?
No, we don't waive research practicum, but you should have an easy time in your research practicum if you're coming in with that research experience.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Vize. And our next question here, can internship be done on a voluntary basis to allow outside employment?
That would be something that you would talk about with the internship. I don't know what you mean by voluntary. You will find when you're applying to internships, I would encourage you to go to apic.org and look at the internships and see what their requirements are. Probably not. Most internships do not allow you to have outside employment.
Perfect. And our next question, do you have a list of approved internship sites we can look at? That's kind of the similar answer. If you go to appic.org, you can take a look at APA approved internships through their website.
Yes.
And our next question here, what if you're an LPC already? Can you be paid per client?
Not for a practicum. We do have people who come in with LPCs, MSWs. who maintain some type of work outside of the program, and that they're able to do that, but not through a practicum setting.
Perfect. Thank you. And this question about the delivery model, we'll cover those in some upcoming
Yes.
slides. So we'll skip over that one. And our next question, I live in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Are there any implications with doing practicum here?
We did have one student from the U.S. Virgin Islands successfully complete the program. It's been several years, and she did do practicums there. So we'd have to look at that to make sure we're still able to do that because since she's graduated, they've developed new laws about authorizations for our program. And so we'd have to carefully look to see if we're still able to take a student from the U.S. Virgin Islands. But
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Vize. And it looks like our next question was answered already. And we'll cover more about financial aid and things like that at the end of the presentation as well. Our next question, do we find our own practicum and internship sites?
uh, you can find your own practicum. We do have a list of practicums, and you will be with a cohort of students, depending on where you live, uh, who will have gone to practicums and can give you information on that. We have a whole clinical training team, a director of practicum training, who all assist with finding practicums if you don't have some on your own. And what was the second part to that question? Internships are listed on APIC, and that's where you find them. And but also, and as you go through the program, again, you'll be with a cohort of students. You'll be talking to people who have went to internships, and they'll be valuable sources of information about applying to internship.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Vize. And can the internship be done in one's place of residence outside of the States?
Canada. Internships can only be done in the United States and Canada. And that's one thing we'll talk about. I don't know, is it time to move on, Brian, that you have to reside in the United States or Canada during your time in the program.
Yeah, it looks like our next few questions are similar in topic. One about transfer credit, though, just quickly, I will send transfer credit information in a follow-up email. Um, We do take some transfer credit. We cap it at 12 credits, and they have to be from within the last 5 years at the graduate level. There are a few additional requirements. We actually look at the syllabus from the courses you've completed and compare those to our learning objectives. So we do take some transfer credit, but transfer credit doesn't impact the length of the program. We cap that at 12 credits. So I'll get more information about that in a follow-up email or in the video description if you're watching the recording. And then Trevor posted a few links to number one, current or recently used practicum locations from our students. So you can take a look at that database if you want to get a bit of an idea of what's been used recently in your area, or the link to the APIC website. They do have a search tool where you can search by geographic location as well. Thank you, Trevor. All right, and I think we can go ahead and continue.
So we've talked about how the program is similar to other APA accredited programs, but there are some distinctive features of our program. One of the biggest is our distributed learning model, which has probably attracted a lot of you to the program, and we'll talk about that. We're not an online only program. We are distributed, which means you can engage in some learning online, and there is quite a bit of residency components to our program. The average age of a fielding student is about 36. We're seeing that maintained with our last set of data. So students are not necessarily traditional coming right out of bachelor's programs. They come with life experiences, master's degrees, and we appreciate that as a program and faculty, and we really do view you as our future colleagues. The program and the university as a whole has a very strong emphasis on diversity and social and ecological justice. And we encourage you to develop that value and bring it to the work that you do. Okay. We also will help you develop your areas of research and clinical focus. Here are some sample dissertation topics that people have completed, and here are optional concentrations. So you can choose to take coursework and training in forensics, health, neuropsychology, and social justice. So as I mentioned, we have a competency-based distributed learning model. And so that means distributed means in-person learning combined with learning at a distance. Competency-based means that we don't just focus on grades. We are very focused on what knowledge, skills, and abilities you're developing in our program. So, can you diagnose mental disorders according to the DSM? Can you establish a therapeutic relationship with a client? Can you administer and write a full psychological assessment? So, those are some skills that you will learn in the program. The distributed part. Fielding is based on a year-long, three-term schedule. So, our academic year starts in the fall. We have a fall term, a spring term, and a summer term. And terms like fall term goes from the end of August or the beginning of September, actually, and it's ending right now. This is like the last day of classes, and then we go into our assessment week. Um, so within each term, we have what we call a residential session, and these are 1 week long sessions that we hold in different cities across the country. The faculty and students come to a session, and for that 1 week, you take in-person instruction. You do not have to go to every session every year, but in your first 2 years of the program, you need to attend most of these sessions. So fall, we had fall session, which just ended about 2 weeks ago. It was in November and it was in Cincinnati. The spring term, we have what we call winter session. Historically, it's always been at the beginning of the spring term, which is January 5th or 6th, it starts, and it's in Santa Barbara. And in the summer, we have a summer session that's in July. Uh, it has been in the Midwest, but last year it was in California, and I think it's going to be in California again this year. We also have these professional development seminars. So when you apply to fielding, and we're going to talk about this, you apply to a geographic location with a faculty advisor who oversees that location. We call those locations professional development seminars. Um, you meet with your PDS approximately 1 weekend day a month for 10 months. Some PDSs meet 2 days a month for about 5 or 6 months, so they spread it out that way. You also will have in-person clinical training experiences. Learning at a distance. The majority of the coursework is done through Moodle at a distance over the entire term. So psychopathology, for example, is a course that you'll probably take in the fall or spring that lasts the whole term, and it's mediated over Moodle, and you may have Zoom meetings like this. So classes, as I kind of mentioned, some of them are only in person at those sessions. So we have a clinical interviewing class where you might meet in a room like this at a conference hotel and you would be taught clinical interviewing, or psychotherapeutic technique is an in-person class. Some classes are only distance mediated, like I just mentioned, psychopathology. And some classes combine both. So our assessment courses, like where you learn to administer intellectual assessments and also projective assessments, the TAT, the Rorschach, are a combination of these methods. So you will have a term long Moodle course, and you'll also have to go to session where you do some in-person training and assessment. This is what a first year might look like. So in fall, you have to do a new student orientation. That's what NSO is. And we have an online component that occurs in the summer right before the fall term. And then we have an in-person component of new student orientation that's been in Santa Barbara. And once you complete those two components, you complete your first course with fielding. These are courses that you would take. You would go to your PDS meetings and you might attend fall session to take some other coursework. Spring term, these are the courses that you would take. And notice that in spring, we're asking you to choose whether you want to do CBT, psychodynamic, or humanistic existential. Um, and so you would choose a theory course, and then that would set you up for your clinical training from that theoretical orientation. These two courses are in-person courses. I had mentioned clinical interviewing, that's all in person. Cognitive assessment has both in person and distance mediated. You would go to your PDS meetings, and this would involve attending winter session. Finally, the first year would finish in summer with your summer term. These would be your last three courses. Again, your PDS meetings. Hopefully, you have started a research practicum by the end of your first year. And then you would go to summer session where you may take these assessment courses or these research skills seminars that we talk about, that we have you take. Okay. PDS location. So I mentioned that when you apply to Fielding, you apply to one of these geographical locations, and we are going to look at them on a map. So each PDS, you notice, has a faculty advisor, a doctor. They're largely clinical psychologists. Some of them have PhDs in other areas of psychology. But if you apply to these locations, this is where this is where you'd be. And we are in the process of interviewing someone for the Los Angeles PDS. We have 3 interviews set up, so we're excited about that. So you should apply to the PDS location that is nearest to you geographically, because that is where you're going to have to travel. And it's also where you're going to have students who are in the same geographic region as you, who you'll get a lot more support around clinical practicum training and things like that. So, additional program information. We have been accredited by the APA since 1991. You are a full-time graduate student. Even though we're distributed and that offers you some flexibility, this is still a full-time program. And, people do work while they're in the program, not everyone, but what we have found is it's essential that that work is flexible, because as you enter year 2, you're going to have to do in-person practicum, typically during the week, during weekday hours. And then by the time you do internship, you have to be able to not work for that 1 year. Brian mentioned the transfer credits, and so I'll stop right there and take some more questions.
So far, you mentioned that the average age for the program is around 36. I will be graduating in May of 2026 with my bachelor's degree, so I wanted to ask whether this may affect my chances of being admitted to the program.
We do take some people straight out of bachelor's. Depends on what your whole application looks like. You can't apply for next year, right? You can't apply because Fielding's rule, even though we've taught, has always been you have to have your bachelor's in hand before you apply. So you won't be able to apply until the cohort of fall of 27. So that gives you a year to do some things that might beef up your application. But we do take students with bachelor's degrees only, but they have to have a well-rounded application.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Vize. And how would the courses that are exclusively in person work? Would they be taught only during the week of the session?
Yes, that is when they're taught. We
Thank you,
do
Dr.
have some faculty that are teaching them at PDS, but it's some of the RSSs and other smaller courses, but you will have to go to sessions. That's something you have to do. The other thing I did not mention is through your PDS attendance and session attendance, you have to obtain 600 face-to-face hours with fielding faculty throughout your time in the program.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Vize. And our next question, must you finalize specialty during the application process? I am interested in 2 different specialties. Um, in the application, you can select an optional concentration. It's optional in the application, and you're not held to that as well. So you do have opportunities to change concentration once you're enrolled in the program. Dr. Vize, do you want to add anything to that as well?
Yeah, if you're not sure, you don't even have to declare it. It's something that we encourage students not to start taking till their second or third year. So it's meant to be done in like the last 2 years of the third and fourth year. Once you have your main courses out of the way and you're like, yes, this is the concentration I want to do. And you don't have to do a concentration.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Vize. And our next question, for clarification, is it APIC that determines the internship policy of not allowing secondary employment, or is it the internship site?
It's the internship site itself.
Perfect. Thank you. And let's see. Yes, we will be emailing the slides from the PowerPoint in a follow-up email. If you're watching the recording, there will also be a link to the slides down in the video description too. And we have another question here. What's the total amount of credits for the program?
179.
Thank you, Dr. Vize. And one thing just to note about that, and we'll talk more about our tuition structure in just a moment. We charge a tuition as a flat rate per term. So if you're comparing like cost per credit, because our tuition structure is a flat rate per term, the number of credits doesn't correlate with the cost of the program. So that's just one thing to keep in mind as you're looking at our total credits. We do also award credits for dissertation milestones, practicum, and internship and things like that. So the 179 credits isn't all just directly coursework.
Correct, yes.
And another question here, what was said about taking a year off of work for an internship?
Just that you need to be prepared to do a 1 year full-time internship when that comes around. So you wouldn't be able to work and go to internship at the same time.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Vize. And those are all of our questions in the chat. For now, I did see a couple of questions about application and tuition information, so we'll cover that in these upcoming slides here. So starting off with tuition and funding information, as I mentioned, our tuition structure is set as a flat rate per term, regardless or independent of the number of credits taken in any given term. So if you're taking an extra class, you don't have any additional tuition charge for the extra class. We have that tuition rate currently set at 10,385 per term. And again, we have those three equal terms per year. Now, there are a few tuition reductions when you reach certain milestones throughout the program. The first is a 30% reduction when you reach the stage of advancement to doctoral candidacy. For students following the 5-year track, that's typically at about the start of the 4th year. Then there is also an additional 50% reduction, so an 80% total reduction when you start internship. Again, on the 5-year track, that would be for that final year of the program. So if you add that all together and you estimate the total based on a 5-year curriculum sequence, the estimated total comes out to 122,935. Now, students do utilize a few different strategies to fund their education, the most common of which is through federal student loans or through your FAFSA, your free application for federal student aid. And now, since we are an APA accredited program, we do meet the health professions program criteria. So that jumps your lifetime unsubsidized loan limits up to about 224,000 currently. So that does help to give a little bit more borrowing flexibility for this program. Now, we do also offer some scholarships, but I do want to be clear, we don't have any full funding for this program. So we don't offer full scholarships. It is always recommended that students have a primary financial plan to cover the full cost of the program. Then, if awarded any scholarships, that can help to offset that primary financial plan. Now, as an incoming student, you'll automatically be considered for scholarships as long as you complete a FAFSA, or if you're not eligible to complete a FAFSA, we have a separate financial need assessment form that you can complete to be considered for scholarship funding as an incoming student. Pretty much all of our scholarships are at Fielding are awarded based on a demonstrated financial need as shown in your FAFSA or that financial assessment form. As a continuing student, you'll have access to a separate common scholarship application where you can apply for scholarships every single term. Next, we also have students who utilize personal resources through either direct payment or through employer sponsorship. And then finally, we do take several different forms of veterans benefits, including the GI Bill. And there's a link to some online instructions for you as well to go through that process. Typically, you'll need your certificate of eligibility first and send that in to Fielding. Now, on the bottom right here, I just have some contact information for you. If you have any questions about any of this information, you can also reach out to us directly at admissions for any general questions. We can generally help out with most basic questions around these topics as well. Okay, so switching our focus here a little bit more to the application and review process. First, let's look at some deadlines and talk about timeline for the review process. So first, the big one here, the application deadline is January 28th, 2026. This program can be started once per year, and that's always in the fall. And our application deadline typically lands in January, and this year for 2026, for fall 2026, it will be on January 28th. Now we review applications as a batch after we pass that application deadline. First round decisions and invitations to interview are the first part of that review. If you're moving forward through that first round, you'll be invited to interview with a faculty member, and you'll interview with the faculty member who runs the professional development seminar location that you select in the application. Now, interviews are all scheduled through Zoom, so you don't have to travel for the interview. And then after interviews are completed, we make final decisions. Now, for timeline, those first round decisions and invitations to interview are typically sent out in mid-March to early April. Interviews are typically scheduled pretty quickly after those invitations are sent out, usually within a week or two. So those take place in later March to early April as well. And then final decisions are typically made in mid-April of 2026. Now, I also want to highlight that all notifications are sent out by email to the email address that you use to create your application portal account. And the timing for when you receive a decision does not indicate the nature of that decision. So if you're a little later in the process, no need to stress. We're sending out decisions of all nature all throughout those windows. And now we'll talk a little bit more about eligibility. We'll talk more about competitiveness in just a moment as well. So, general eligibility, all applicants must have a conferred bachelor's degree from a regionally accredited college or university, or if you've completed your degree outside of the United States, you'll need a course-by-course international degree evaluation from an NACES approved organization showing US GPA equivalency to a regionally accredited degree. Now, those are typically referred to as a course by course evaluation so that it shows individual letter grades as well as your cumulative GPA. And all of your courses do need to be listed there on the evaluation. Now, I want to highlight also that your bachelor's degree does currently need to be conferred to apply to the program. So if you're finishing your bachelor's degree after January 28th, you'll have to wait to apply for the following start, which would be fall 2027. Now, we also talked about the in-person component. Students do need to reside within the United States or Canada to be eligible for this program. And then again, our application deadline is January 28th, 2026. All right, so I know there have been several questions about competitiveness here. We typically hover around a 25% acceptance rate. That translates to about 75 new students and over 300 applications. That may vary a little bit year to year, but we're usually right around that 25%. A few things that help folks stand out in the application process are experience as a volunteer, help provider, or psychotherapist, basically experience in the mental health field. And then also, and especially, experience with psychological research through coursework and hands-on research experience as a lab or research assistant. Those are the two biggest factors that can help someone stand out, particularly that research experience component. Now, if you'd like to take more of a deep dive into this topic about competitiveness when applying for APA accredited programs, we do have a recorded application workshop available here at the link on the slide. That is the Secrets of Success Gaining Admission to Clinical Psychology Doctoral Programs that gives more insight into what APA accredited program review committees are looking for. So it's a great way to get more of a deep dive on that competitiveness topic. Now, shifting over here to the application itself, in the application, you can actually complete the application entirely online, and there is a link to the application portal here on the slide. The application isn't timed, so you can log in and out of the application portal as needed up to that January 28th application deadline. The application portal will close at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, so you'll want to make sure you get that application submitted anytime before that date and time. Now, in the application, we'll have you upload a few supplemental documents that includes a statement of purpose, a critical thinking writing sample, and a CV. Now, the statement of purpose and the critical thinking writing samples do have specific prompts to follow, so be sure to take a look at those prompts before you start writing your papers. Again, you can log into the application whenever you're ready and then take a look at those prompts. You can type them up in your preferred word processor and then upload them as a PDF when you're ready. Now, normally there is a $75 application fee, but as a thank you for joining us at our information session here or for watching the recording, we will be adding an application fee waiver to your accounts. I know Trevor is already working on that in the background. Thank you, Trevor. Now, if you're watching the recording, just send an email over to us at admissions@fielding.edu and we'll coordinate a fee waiver for you that way. Now, there aren't any codes to enter or any other steps to take for that application fee waiver. It's all automatic. We'll add it to your application account associated with the email address you used to register for our session today. So you don't have to enter in any kind of code or anything like that. When you click to submit your application, the fee waiver will activate and bypass the fee payment page altogether. So you'll still see the fee payment page in the application, but you can just ignore it. Once you click to submit it, the fee waiver will bypass that page. Next, we require official transcripts or an international transcript evaluation to be delivered directly to Fielding from your previous schools or from the evaluation agency. Now, we require official transcripts from your bachelor's degree, even if you have additional education, such as a master's or even doctoral level experience. So you have to have your bachelor's sent over to us. And then we also recommend that you have all of your completed education sent to us as official transcripts or included in your international evaluation. And finally, we require 3 letters of recommendation. Your letters of recommendation also need to be sent directly to Fielding from your recommenders. So how we coordinate that process is we have you enter in the names and contact information for your recommenders directly into the application portal. You'll need to enter in all 3 of your recommenders and their contact information at the same time. And then when you click Save and Continue on that page, an email will be sent out to each recommender with a brief set of instructions as well as a link to a unique portal where they can upload a PDF copy of a letter for you. Now, with those recommenders emails, I do recommend that you follow up with your recommenders to ensure that they've received the requests for a letter once you enter their information into the application. That happens right away as soon as you save that page. So you want to follow up with your recommenders to make sure they receive it and can upload those letters for you. If they didn't receive it, you can always contact us to have those resent. Now, we don't require the GRE or any other entrance exam here at Fielding, so just what you see on this slide for the application is everything that is required to apply. And again, that application deadline is January 28th. So that wraps up the application requirements here. So we do have still plenty of time for questions, and I have contact information here on the slide for you as well. And I do want to just applaud everyone for taking the time to learn more about the program today and to help you with a very informed decision as you're applying to graduate school. I know it's a big decision, and we want you to be confident in that decision. So we're happy to take questions, and you can continue posting in the chat. I did see that a lot of questions were answered as we were going through here. Let's see. I see the question here for letters of recommendation. Is there a form that needs to be completed, or are they only letters from the individual? When the recommender accesses the recommender portal, there are a few brief questions to answer, but the main component is that they have a space to upload a PDF document of a free form letter. We don't have specific requirements for the letter, so they can upload the letter that they see as most fit for you.
Trevor has his hand up. Go ahead, Trevor.
I just didn't know. Excuse me. We had 2 questions. I didn't want to make sure they got covered. Have you had students obtain scholarships, fellowships from outside sources? And do Canadian students ever receive tuition awards? Excuse me.
Yeah, good questions. For the first one, yes, you can receive scholarships from external sources as well. In fact, we encourage students to seek out external scholarship funding, and that can be coordinated through our Office of Financial Aid as well. So if you have a scholarship from an outside source, that can be applied to your tuition as well. You can receive financial aid from any source up to the total cost of attendance. And cost of attendance does include some additional components like some of your travel expenses for the in-person sessions and some things like that, books and supplies and so on. So if you have external scholarships, that can be included in your overall financial aid package as well. And then, yes, our Canadian students are also considered for our scholarship funds. As long as you complete a financial need assessment form through our Office of Financial Aid, you'll automatically be considered as an incoming student. And then for future terms, after your first term, you have a separate common scholarship application. Regardless of a student's location or residence, we award all of our scholarships, pretty much all of our scholarships, with a prioritization on demonstrated financial need. So Canadian students are eligible for those scholarships as well as any US-based students as well. All right. And our next question, would you be able to provide an academic calendar for the 26-27 terms with meetings and breaks included? Our full academic calendar for 26-27 isn't published yet with all of the details, but we do have a rough outline available, and I'll go ahead and post that in the chat in response to your question in just a moment.
I'm posting that in the chat now.
Beautiful. Thank you, Trevor. And which international transcript accreditation organization do you accept? We accept international evaluations from any NACES approved organization. So you can shop around and choose which organization works best for you. We do have a few organizations listed on our website as well. So if you wanted to take a look there, you can also do that. And there is that link on the slide. So you'll have that in follow up too. And I'll also grab that link and post it in the chat. And can the fee waiver be converted to a refund or deducted from my tuition since I have already paid? We aren't able to do a retroactive refund for you, but for anyone watching the recording, we can add a fee waiver to your account. And thank you, Dr. Vize. I saw that you answered that
Yeah, and
question
they're
here.
asking, someone's asking about TAs. Yes, we have them. You can't apply for them until you enter into the program. And there are requirements now for being a TA that you have to have a master's degree. So if you don't come in with a master's degree, you have to wait 2 years before you can be a TA here.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Vize. And another question here, I may have missed it since I joined a bit late. When referring to PDS locations, for example, Cleveland, would the in-person courses be in those locations or in the state of California where fielding is located?
No, so in-person courses occur at the sessions, and those occur 3 times a year, and they vary. Right now, most of our sessions are in Cincinnati and California. So you will have some travel to those areas to take the courses during session. Your PDS meetings, you said you're in Cleveland, will be in Cleveland. We have a faculty, Dr. Emick, in Cleveland. So, Kashan, you have your hand up.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. For the internship portion, if a site were to waive the outside employment, is what would the mechanism for that be? Would there be like how would that work as far as would they just notify fielding? Would they notify APIC? What is the process?
You will enter into a contract with your internship, and they'll work out those details with you. What they communicate to us and to APIC is that you're going there, you're completing the hours, they do rating forms on you. Um, I would not uh, bank on having an internship that allows you to work outside of it. I mean, it's a possibility, but I wouldn't like bank my decision to come into the program based on that. I would look more at, am I going to be able to complete a full year of internship? Um, that's full time. Can I do that? Can I see myself doing that in 4 or 5 years?
And if you were to work at an APIC site, would there be any conflict with working if you're already working at an APIC site and then working as an intern at an APIC?
Well, you would have to apply. If you work at an APIC site, you still have to apply for the internship there. So that's something to talk. Do they accept former employees into their internship? It would become a different, you wouldn't be employed by them in the same capacity.
Okay, thank you.
And Dr. Vize, there are a few follow-up questions to the TA question. Is the TA a typical one that offers tuition assistance, and can TAs do their work remotely, or do they have to be residing in the US?
So in order to be paid to be a TA, you have to be eligible for employment in the US. You um, you could reside in Canada if you're able to be paid in the US. So that's something that they work out. You need to reside in the US or Canada during your time in the program. So make sure that's clear to people. Was there another part of that? That was
I think you answered the other part as well in that, one thing I wanted to add to the internship component, you are still enrolled as a student. So if you do need to continue using federal financial aid through that period of internship, you can also still use student loans to help with other living expenses during that period of the program too. And Trevor, yeah, go ahead.
I just got a private message that said, are there student accommodations in Santa Barbara when we have to travel down for in-person classes for people who haven't been to California before or familiar with the city?
We don't provide the accommodations. We do provide information on the accommodations. So they're held at specific hotels. And so our sessions team does get you a discounted rate for those hotels, but we also have students who sometimes stay at Airbnbs or other places. So we don't pay for the accommodations, but we do provide you information on the accommodation.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. Vise. And another question here, is there a book or anything that you would recommend for someone interested in psychology profession to read?
Lots of books. I'm just thinking. Um, I would look at the APA's Guide to Graduate Study in Clinical Psychology. That would be a logistic, kind of practical place to start. Um, then I would read, if you're really interested in clinical psychology, I would pick up a textbook on psychopathology. And I recommend the latest edition of the Oxford textbook on psychopathology. Um,
Perfect. Thank you,
and
Dr.
then,
Vise.
I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of things to read. Freud, Rogers, all those people, existential people. Like there's just lots of stuff to read. But those would be two places I would start before entering graduate school in clinical psychology.
And then one shout out about another program we have here at Fielding is our post-baccalaureate certificate in clinical psychology. If anyone is kind of getting started in their career towards clinical psychology or their academic path towards clinical psychology, these programs are competitive. So a great way to kind of build your experience and gain strong foundational experiences is through that certificate program in clinical psychology. So that could be something to explore as well if you're kind of earlier on in your journey.
Yeah, the one person who meant like if you do have a bachelor's degree come May, and you're not getting accepted into a lot of graduate programs right away, I would recommend the post-bac because that whole program can be completed in a year, right? And it's designed to help you get into graduate school, not just ours, but students get into other graduate schools. So it's designed to kind of prepare you for the field. So it's an alternative to a master's.
And another question here, can you provide total cost of attendance? What is able to be taken out in student loans for living expenses? I'll drop a link to our financial aid page for more information about that. It is variable, so it depends on the year and things like that. It does get adjusted. So I'll go ahead and drop a link to that in the chat as well. And it looks like those are all of our questions here in the chat. I do know we're just about at time, but if anyone has maybe another question or two, we can probably still have time to cover those. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, so we can go ahead and wrap up. Thank you all again for joining today to really learn more about the program, to ask all of these important questions, and to really educate yourself to make an informed decision towards your graduate education. So I really appreciate you all joining. Thank you, Trevor, for your support in the background here and answering all of those questions. Dr. Vise, thank you so much for hosting the session today as well. A pleasure meeting you all and wishing you all a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone.